Okay, it's time to take everything we've learned about probability and apply it to RStudio. We're going to be making contingency tables and marginal distributions in this video. Sometimes we're given giant lists of categorical data. Remember, these are things like names, states, genders, animal types, and so on. And we'll want to count the number of items in each category. Now, sometimes these lists get really big, and trying to count the number of items in each category is going to be impossible. This is where we're going to use functions like xtabs and prop.table. The dataset phones.csv has information about each student's gender and the type of phone that they use. What I want you to do first is pause the video. Underneath the little video is a little button that allows you to download the files that are associated with this video. So I want you to download the phones.csv dataset and import it into your RStudio. If you haven't seen me import data into RStudio, I recommend going back to week 1 so I show you how to do all that importing data into RStudio. There's a whole video on all of that. So download the phones.csv dataset, import it to RStudio, and we'll go ahead and get started. The first question wants to know how many people were surveyed and how many people have iPhones. So let's have a look. We have this phones dataset already imported. We can see that we can actually click it and we can see, okay, whether someone who's a male with an iPhone or female with an iPhone or female with an Android. So we've got all sorts of different people and all their different phone types, different genders, different phone types. And we want to count the number of people who have iPhones. It would be really tedious to go through by hand to do this, I'm sure you can imagine. So we're not going to do it by counting. We're going to let the function xtabs do that for us. But first, let's answer the first question. How many people were surveyed? Well, we can kind of see over here in your global environment, there's the number 100, right? I don't mean to click it. The number 100, it says 100 observations. So I would say 100 people. Let's go back over. 100 people surveyed. And let's just say 100 surveyed, we'll say. And how many people have iPhones? This is where we're going to go back to RStudio and we'll type xtabs is the function we're going to use that will count for us, tilde, and we'll just do the variable that we want broken down. In our case, we want phone type broken down. So open parentheses, phone type, and then we have to make sure we name the data set, which is data equals phones. Let's run this, and we can see we get a breakdown of the different phones that everyone has. 40 people have Android, 53 people have iPhones, and 7 have other. So we're going to say, go back over to this guy and say 53 have iPhones. Great. All right. Next question says, what is the probability that a randomly selected student in this group owns an iPhone or is female? So let's move this up a little bit. Owns an iPhone or is female. So I'm going to go back to RStudio, and now we want to do probability. So here's what we're going to do slightly differently. We're going to get another xtabs where we ask for phone type, but we also want to see how that breaks down with gender as well. So I'll say plus gender. Notice I'm putting a plus here, not a comma. And then I'll put a comma after gender to make sure I correctly identify the data set that I'm using. So there we go. This once again gives us another table, but now it's got not just the phone type that we have, Android, iPhone, and other, but also a gender breakdown, which is nice, but the question wants a probability. I don't want a number of people. So I'm gonna go back over to RStudio and say to myself, hey, RStudio, I don't want raw numbers of people. I want percentages. So jump back to RStudio, and here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna pipe, so in case you didn't watch my first week on what a pipe means, you might want to go back and do that as well, the pipe operator. We're going to pipe the xtabs command into a prop.table. Okay? Notice that we do an open parentheses, close parentheses, and we're going to leave it like that because there are some optional commands we can throw in there if we want to, but for now we won't. And let's run this line. And now we have them as a percentage. We have all these, we have 12% of survey respondents were female with Androids, 28% of respondents were male with Androids, 29% were female with Androids, with iPhones, I should say, and so on. And we want to know what's the probability that a randomly selected student in this group owns an iPhone or is female. So here's what I want you to do. I don't know why it's so hard for students to read a table like this, and I know I'm roasting you right now, but the question says owns an iPhone or is female. So what we're going to do is I'm going to highlight every number. And if the answer to one of my questions is yes, they count because I said owns an iPhone, it counts, or female. Okay, ready? Let's do it. I'm going to highlight this number. Do they own an iPhone? No, they're an Android owner. Are they female? Yes, they're in the female column. So I'm going to take this number and add it to my list, 0.12. We're going back to RStudio. This person, are they an iPhone owner? No. Are they female? No. So I'm going to ignore that value. Moving to the next row. Is this an iPhone owner? Yes, it is. So I'm going to write that number down, 0.29. All right, jump back to RStudio. Is this person an iPhone owner? Yes, they are. So we're going to add them, 0.24. I know you can't see me writing it, but trust me, I'm writing 0.24. Is this person an iPhone owner? No, it says they own some other sort of smartphone device. Are they female? Yes, they are. So I'm going to add that 0.02. And lastly, is this person an iPhone owner? Nope. Is this person female? Nope, they're in the male category. So we're not going to add this number either. We're going to ignore that. So our answer is just adding the values up that we got over here on back on our paper. We have 12 plus 29 plus 24 plus 2 is 67. And so this is your answer to this first question. Let's keep going. I can't really see. There we go. Let's move this up. Perfect. What is the probability that a randomly selected student in this group is a male with an Android? So is a male and has an Android. So now we want to know which group is male and Android. This is Android, but they're female, so we don't want them. This is Android and they're male, so that's going to be 0.28. I know I'm writing it down. You can't see it yet. Is there any other group that would qualify here that would be male and Android? Nope, these are iPhone owners. And no, these are all other phone owners. So these guys don't count. My answer is just 0.28. There's only one group there in the male and Android category, so that's 0.28. Next question says, what's the probability that a randomly selected male in this group has an Android? This is where conditional probability is going to kick in. I didn't say randomly selected student, I said randomly selected male. So because of that, this is a conditional probability. I can say probability of Android given male. And again, I want to highlight the difference. A lot of people overlook that this is a conditional probability, but this is because of the following. This question was not conditional because it said randomly selected student. Well, that's everybody in the group, so this is out of the entire group. But this says randomly selected male, so this is the given for this question. This is the given. There's a couple ways to do this. We can use the conditional probability formula that we've talked about before, Android and male, divided by probability of male. So we can do this in RStudio the following way. I'm going to jump back on over and say, first off, once more, our probability of Android and male is 0.28. So I'm going to put that in my numerator. Let's put this in blue. 0.28 is my numerator. And now I just want probability of male. So I'm going to jump back to RStudio. You could, if you wanted to, just add the values in the male column. So 0.28, 0.24, and 0.05 when added together would give me 0.57, and that would be my denominator. 0.57. And again, I obtain that just by adding all of the values here in the male column. Okay. Or alternatively, you can do the following. Let's copy our xtabs and just delete phone type. I just want to see a breakdown of gender. Oops. I just want to see a breakdown of gender here. Okay, there it is. Male is just 0.57. So it's easy if you just make RStudio do it for you, or you could add the values in the male column to get probability of male. So this gives me an answer of, let's just use RStudio as a glorified calculator. 0.28 divided by 0.57 is 0.491. So I'm going to write that back over on my .cam, 0.491. Let me show you an alternative way of getting the same answer. RStudio can give us conditional probability. So I'm going to copy this table. And remember I said earlier when I introduced prop.table that prop.table can take in some optional commands. And one of those optional commands is margin equals. Now margin equals it's either going to be margin equals 1 or margin equals 2. And that is always the case. It's always either margin equals 1 or margin equals 2. And that depends on what you want to condition on. It depends on your given. So let's go back to my probability problem. It said my given was male. That's a gender. So because of that, I need to go back to RStudio. I know I keep toggling back and forth between RStudio and this write-up. I'm going to go back to RStudio and say, because gender was my given, and because gender is listed second out of these two variables, right? I have phone type plus gender. Phone type is 1, gender is 2. Well, then I'm going to say margin equals 2 because I'm supposed to condition on that. So watch carefully. I'm going to run this line. And check it out. Probability, this is a conditional probability. This is the probability that someone owns an Android given that they are male. But check it out. It's the same value we got when we use the conditional probability formula. So same value, 0.49122,807. I know it rounds over here, but that's okay. 0.49122 is close enough. So I got the same value when I did the prop.table margin equals 2 as I did when I used the conditional probability formula. It's up to you what makes you happier. Some people like using the conditional probability formula. Some people like throwing it to RStudio and saying, hey, do all the work for me. I don't want to have to think. So thanks for watching. My name is Andy, and if you found that video useful, we've got plenty more videos just like it. We're giving away a free month of membership, our essential membership to GPA Factory, a free month of it. If you want to get it, just go to this URL and use code YouTube100 to start learning from one of the best to ever teach it. That's me. See you guys soon.